Welcome on into the Wolverine TV. Clayton Sayfie here with Chris Balas. Heading into the 4th of July, so hope everyone's enjoying, early on here in their weekend, and they have a good extended weekend. But we're going to give you some Michigan Wolverines talk here before you enjoy that 4th of July, or you could be listening or watching after, so that works too. We'll talk a little bit about here name, image, and likeness, the hot topic around really everything right now surrounding college athletics. It's all anyone's talking about, so obviously we're going to discuss that. We will talk about some Michigan football, Michigan basketball, the freshmen on campus now, so the full team's really together, minus a guy or two. We'll talk about that on the basketball side of things, some guys competing elsewhere overseas right now. And then we will get into Hunter Dickinson and DeVante Jones, who have to decide here in the next week what they are going to do and what we're kind of feeling on that front. So let's start, I guess, with name, image, and likeness. Man, as soon as you wake up yesterday, Thursday, there's things on Twitter. Every kid is, signing a deal here, coming out with merchandise. I don't know if anyone saw Aiden Hutchinson coming out with his jersey T-shirt, 97 with the Hutch logo on there. So it's crazy. I think it's a good move. Obviously the NCAA handled it terribly, and it had to go to the Supreme Court and all that, but that's the NCAA for you. So
Stunning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they mishandled something. So,
Yeah.
I think it's right that they can benefit off of this. There's major implications when you look at the way that, some programs run their programs and the fact that, they're going to go about it probably in a way that breaks the rules. But that's it just comes with the territory. It's already happening, I think, with the current rules or I guess the former rules, and it's going to happen here. What's kind of your big picture take on it?
Yeah. You know what? First of all, a little teaser. Watch for more from Aiden Hutchinson in the near future. Number two, you know what? I read all the stuff online and I was reading all this and here's who's getting what. It's crazy because I talked to both a freshman football player's dad and a senior football player's dad, and they said the same thing. It got nuts. Agents are coming out of the woodwork, and people that want to use their likeness are coming out of the woodwork. And they said it's just nuts. The phone's ringing off the hook, and they don't know what's right and what's not. Number one, and thank you NCAA. Michigan's doing its best, and they put out a long list of things. Okay, these are the rules you have to follow, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, it should have been, if the NCAA had done its job, okay, this is uniformity, right? And this is what you can and can't do. And this is how you prevent kids from getting inundated with requests and so on and so forth. And maybe there's some kind of a formula to it, but clearly there's not. And that's what bugs me, number one. Number two, it's going to make it easier for, it's like Doug Skeen said the other day. He said the rich are going to get richer because, hey, they've been doing this all along. They're just going to find ways to, it's going to be like laundering money. They're going to find ways to do it and say, hey, no, this is just, part of the NIL thing. Oh, okay. And what do you think the NCAA is going to say about that? Oh, okay, no problem. Nothing to see here. So, but at the same time, these kids, the NCAA brought this upon themselves. These guys should have been getting a little bit more spending money, all the money, $1 billion or whatever that the NCAA makes, and they can't give the athletes a little bit more spending money. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I understand that the scholarship money and everything else, to me, that means something. That's a lot of money, and you're getting paid, to represent your school. You're getting a free education, but a little bit more spending money wasn't going to kill anybody. And to me, that's what kind of opened Pandora's box here.
Well, the interesting thing about that, and I agree with you there to an extent, but this isn't even coming from them, though. This isn't coming from the schools.
Right.
So it's like it's different than that. Like, I completely understand that point of view, but now they have to go out, and I guess, it makes sense. They have to go out and work for this money, and, if the better athletes, the ones with the bigger platform, are obviously going to get paid more. Adrian Nunez is going to be cleaning up because he has 1.6 million followers on TikTok. So some of these guys, it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be the starting quarterback at Michigan to be,
No.
and at the same time, that's fair too, though, because it's like, he did build up, whether whatever people think about TikTok or not or whatever, he built it up, and he has his followers.
How do you do it? What the hell's on there? I don't look at TikTok. I'm an older guy. Tell me how you get 1.6 million followers on TikTok.
I don't really fully understand it either. I know there's a crazy algorithm to it. I know that he has done some dances on there, and that's kind of the big thing. It's like these guys and girls will just dance to like songs, and then there's these trends that come about. And then Adrian Nunez is also dating a girl who is pretty big on there as well, so they've collaborated. I don't know if you remember last year some of those videos that he made, and Juwan Howard appeared in a couple. That helps too. So in like Franz Wagner, Mo, I think, was in some of the NBA guys. So he got people involved in all that. But I don't think most of his followers are Michigan fans, to be honest. I think they just kind of, they know that he's this guy, and good for him for that. But I think it's
guy.
Yeah, he has his own brand. He's came out with a merch line too. I don't know if you saw that. So he has his own logo now with it's kind of like a silhouette of his hair. So good for Adrian Nunez. Good for Aiden Hutchinson. We're going to see more of that to come with all these different guys. Michigan, it looks like they are going to be partnering based on Sydney Sims, who tweeted this, with, and she's the director of branding for Michigan football, with a company called Influencer, INFLCR. And, I think that's smart. There hasn't been a formal announcement on that yet as we're speaking, but basically, I think the difference, and people were talking yesterday, and we said, Michigan doesn't look like they were as prepared as an Alabama, even a Michigan State, who came out with a couple weeks ago that they were partnering with a consultation firm. So what Michigan can do in their involvement here for, the people don't fully understand, and I will say this, I don't fully understand it. I don't think anyone does. But they can't set up the deals for the players, by the books or anything, and no school can, but they can educate these kids. They can, the kids can come to them and say, is this a good deal or is this not a good deal? Am I getting gypped here? Am I getting ripped off? Is this guy a shady character? On and on. And I think that's obviously huge that they're able to do that. So it looks like they are going to partner with a firm that is heavily involved in this. Also, hiring Sydney Sims in the first place for branding, I think, is big, especially in recruiting, because, you got to be able to tell recruits that, hey, you're going to be able to come here, have a big platform, and make some cash, because that is important for some kids, and it should be important. So what are your thoughts? And I know you've said they're behind Michigan, and I agree with you. I think if they can get up to speed, though, here real quick, if they match what some of these other schools are doing. What do you think so far of, kind of what Michigan has done?
Yeah, I spoke with a high-level booster not long ago, and he said, man, he had given them some ideas to get ahead of this thing and say, hey, this is what we can do, and so on and so forth. And Michigan said, well, we've got this, we've got an idea, and to me, they didn't out of the gate. They were just kind of feeling things out to see where it would go. And when we spoke with Michigan the other day to actually approach a kid about using his likeness for an advertisement, it was like, okay, you need to talk to his dad. And I'm thinking, wow, man. And then when I did talk to the dad, it was like, you wouldn't believe, he said, it's unbelievable how many people have reached out. So I think they can get there. This is an opportunity for Michigan to level the playing field against those schools that we've talked about all the time, have significant advantages for various reasons. I'm saying it without saying it. So you've got one of the largest alumni bases in the country. You've got boosters with huge money, but it comes back to, I go back to Ohio State. Gene Smith, for example, their athletic director, meeting in a conference call, a Zoom call with 20 of the biggest boosters on day one or the night before, and saying, okay, we ready, whereas Michigan's still in the locker room getting their uniforms on. Ohio State seems to be ready to play. So and that's a concern, because this, again, to me, when I first heard about it, I thought this is a great opportunity here for a school like Michigan to, hey, you can say we do this by the book, we do this by the rules, so on and so forth. But to come out and do it legally and to level that playing field, I don't think they're there yet, but I trust that there are enough smart people in that building to understand how important this is and what an opportunity they have here.
No doubt about it. They can at least pitch to kids that, they're not going to come here and get nothing. That they're going to have the opportunity, and Michigan's going to do everything they can to make sure those kids have their own personal brand, which is important now. Some people are saying, oh, I'm so done with this. I saw a couple of people on the message board saying, I'm so done with, all this stuff. It's like, well, I mean, this is an opportunity, like you said, for Michigan right now, because stuff like this is going on elsewhere. I was kind of thinking about this too. Let's say you're an Alabama, you're a member of the Red Elephant Club, and you own a car dealership in Tuscaloosa. You've been ponying up some money for some time, hypothetically speaking, But now you get a kid, you actually are benefiting more from it because now the kid is going to have to do a car dealership ad for you and can do one. So they're actually getting more out of it, I feel like. So some of these boosters are probably pretty happy at some of those schools. Man, the Ohio States of the world, like you said with Gene Smith, I don't know how legal it is to talk to your boosters and tell them to, start buying ads for, they're not supposed to have involvement in setting up the deals. But again, this is the wild, wild west, and I've seen that term thrown around so many different times. I've used it over the last day and since this ruling has come out, and I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that Gene Smith is saying this is what you need to
right,
do. Maybe
right,
he's
exactly.
just listening and saying, yeah, we're not accusing Ohio State of breaking any rules. They would never do that. But it's one of those things where it just shows how on top of it they are, and you wonder, what has Ward Manuel been doing? I'd love to talk to Ward. And in fact, we're going to put in a request to speak with him next week. And I'm sure they'll probably do something, a Zoom call, because I'm sure we're not the only ones. But I'd love to know what they are planning and what they're doing. And again, the importance of this, it's there, man. It can't be overstated. It's just one of those things that's part of college football. I don't like it. I'm a traditionalist, and I go back 30 years ago when, to me, college football was pretty damn pure. And now I look at it, and more it gets to be like the professional game. And, the one thing that always made college football special is that's exactly what it wasn't, and those guys were playing for the school and so on and so forth. I think there'll be an element of that always, especially among the cool schools with great culture. But to me, it's completely different. It's a different game now. Now you've got the playoff. I remember when Lloyd Carr said, when they were talking about a playoff, and he said, it's going to happen, but I don't want to be around to see it. And then he thought about it a second. He said, well, maybe I do, because he knew it was coming, and it's like, yeah, I guess I do want to be around to see it. But at the same time, I understood what he was saying. It's tradition and it's old school, but to me, it was better. But here we are, man. So you just got to make the most of it.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of the Dabo Sweeney quote that got resurfaced yesterday from 2019. He said the day that college athletes get paid is the day he walks away from the sport. As far as I've seen, he is still employed by Clemson.
Yeah,
and but God forbid his athletes get any sort of money. So
yeah, the irony in that statement. So let's move on to the next topic.
Yep. So summer's in full swing now for Michigan football, Michigan basketball. You saw the pictures that Michigan basketball tweeted the other day of the first kind of voluntary workout with the coaching staff. And, it's kind of fun to see some of those guys that we've covered as recruits now and the signees now in their Michigan practice uniform with that new team that has a new look to it. Hunter Dickinson and DeVante Jones, I guess we can just kind of lump that in with this topic as well, will probably be there, based on their draft projections and everything else. They have to decide by July 7th here. So the team is not in full yet. Caleb Houston on the basketball side of things as well, competing in, for U19 Team Canada. So good for him there, and that's a cool opportunity. Also, Mo Wagner, just a side note, doing that for Germany in obviously a higher age group, playing for in the Olympic qualifiers. So some cool basketball stuff going around, but it was kind of cool to see some of that come out of the new team and some of those guys in the maize and blue for the first time. And those guys, a lot of those guys didn't get to visit either when they were recruits either. So
right, Frankie Collins. I love seeing Frankie Collins in a Michigan uniform. I think that kid's going to be a stud in terms of what he can do with the ball. And I do think Hunter Dickinson will announce shortly that he's coming back. DeVante Jones. I haven't seen either of these guys projected in any draft projections. Of you?
No, I mean, right. You've seen him in. I saw DeVante Jones in a 2022 one. But,
right. Yeah. And even Hunter Dickinson, it's going to be tough for him. That'll be his last year probably coming up. He's older and he's going to want to give it a shot and go out and make some money, whether it's in the NBA or in Europe or in the G League. He doesn't have the prototypical NBA game now. He's not the great athlete. We've discussed this many times, but he's going to be able to make some money, obviously, playing basketball. So, and when you get older, you've got a shelf life there, man. But he's going to have an opportunity here. Hopefully he'll get some NIL money this summer and this season as well. But the thing about it is that it's going to look completely different, and it's going to be a different challenge than Juwan Howard ever had, because he's going to have a lot of guys worthy, in my opinion, of playing time. You've got some great freshmen coming in, Eli Brooks coming back, Hunter Dickinson, and then those that unbelievable class of 6 freshmen. 5 of them, everybody's saying, okay, they could play right away, or at least 4. So how's he going to manage the roster? And that to me is exciting. But we've heard great things about Frankie Collins' quickness that we already knew how good he is with the ball. Right off the bat, Will Cheddar's a guy that is going to contribute here. This kid is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be this year. He's got to get used to the speed of the game, which we saw a little bit when we saw him play some of the elite high school teams, because he's from a small town in Minnesota. But to me, that kid's going to be one of those guys that's going to be here for 4 years and is really going to be, if he sticks it out, which you hope he does, then he's going to be a major contributor down the road. And that's how you got to build your team. You don't want this to be a one and done factory. And I think that we're seeing it's not going to be. But again, as long as these guys stick around, the guys that aren't playing right away, it's an immediate gratification society, right? And these kids have to understand that, hey, you come to a place like Michigan, you're going to get recruited, not over, but you're going to get a lot of great recruits joining you. It's going to be tough for you. Just have to stick it out.
Definitely. And the good thing, I think, is for Michigan is the way that Juwan Howard is recruiting. And he recruited at such a high level, but this is a class full of guys that also understand what, he's, continuing to build at Michigan. And the fact that you're talking to some of these guys and they're like, no, he didn't give us any promises in the recruiting process. He didn't say that, I'm going to start as a freshman. He said that there's going to be the opportunity to start as a freshman or play a lot as a freshman. But it will be interesting to see because, Michigan 2 years ago in Juwan's first year was, it wasn't a super deep team. When Franz Wagner was hurt, they were playing Adrian Nunez, speaking of TikTok star, quite a bit. And then, last year even it was a pretty short bench. There were guys like Terrence Williams who could come in and give minutes, and he was in and out of the rotation. But now it's a team that could probably go 10 deep, but you don't really want to do that because you want to keep the guys. You want to have a rhythm there. If those are your best guys, there's no sense of sitting some of your best guys just so you can go 10 deep and say that we're a super deep team. It's good to have that when you have foul trouble or an injury or something like that, but it will be a different challenge, as you said, for Juwan Howard coming in here. And, I think it's going to be interesting to see because it's a year-to-year sport. Everybody knows that. He's done a great job so far, but there's going to be a challenge, a different one every single year, and he's got to, continue to answer that. And I think Michigan fans and, I'm in the boat that, I'm confident that he can do that this season as well. He still has quite a bit of talent. Eli Brooks coming back massive.
Yep.
As well as the possibility of Hunter and DeVante Jones coming in, as well as some of those younger guys that we talked about. On the football side of things as well, they were in a couple weeks earlier than the basketball guys, but starting those workouts, everyone talks about, including Doug Skeen, as you mentioned earlier, our analyst here, former Michigan, all Big Ten offensive lineman. The team's forged in the summer when, those stories, listen to your guys' podcast, they never get old of, just those guys bonding outside of the workouts, working super hard while they're in those workouts, studying up, and they're just ready to go come fall camp. What are you hearing, I guess, so far on the football side of things as they kind of rage on here?
Yeah, they bust their butts in the summer, man. I remember when I was in school, I worked at University Towers. They never heated the pool. It was probably like 60 degrees in the summer. It was always in the shade. And guys like Joe Marinero and Mike Sullivan would come from the building where they were working out, and they didn't care how cold the water was, man. They were in there. They were so sore. These guys are working their butts off. I've heard great things, number one, about Ben Herbert and the strength program, that these guys are really getting after it. He has been very pleased, especially with some of the freshmen. A couple of kids I want to mention. Number one, Pro Football Focus did a recent season preview, and they were projecting the quarterback, and they had Alan Bowman starting at Michigan. I don't think that's going to happen, and that's not just based on a couple of weeks. I do think that the other guys are going to be ahead of him just because they've been enveloped in the offense a little bit more. So you look at a guy like J.J. McCarthy, who I think is going to be the future of this program. We've heard different people say it's going to be all or nothing with him. Right now, it looks like it's going to be all based on the way he's throwing the ball, and he's really picking things up, picking the offense up better. Of course, they can't practice, but they can do informal workouts and 7-on-7s and stuff like that. From everything we've heard, he's been dynamite. Now, Cade McNamara has never been the great practice player, but he was the gamer. We saw it against Rutgers. We saw it for half a quarter against Wisconsin, where he led the team down the field. So, but I do think it's J.J. McCarthy's team at some point. Who knows how soon, but he is the guy. Everybody says he's got that look of a Michigan quarterback. But a couple of freshmen, Andrell Anthony, we can continue to hear great things about the freshman receiver. And everybody's like, well, he's going to start and he's going to do this, he's going to do that. He's probably not. Okay, he might start, but he's not going to be putting up 800 yards as a true freshman. You go back to the best freshman in Michigan history, performances at wide receiver, none of those guys had huge first years. And part of it was the guys in front of them, and part of it was they were still learning. So, but he's going to be good. The guy I really like is Louis Hansen, man, at tight end, 254 pounds now. Ben Herbert, from everything we've heard, has just been like, wow, this is unbelievable. This kid is really putting in the time. And at that position, there's going to be an opportunity. Eric All needs to step up. We wrote that yesterday, that this better be his breakout season, because we keep hearing about how good he is in practice. You got to catch the ball in a game. But Louis Hansen, in my opinion, is going to be one of those guys that contributes right away, and in 2 or 3 years is going to be vying to be one of the better tight ends to ever play here. I really believe that. So after that, it's about getting the big guys in shape. Mozzie Smith looks great on the defensive line. We keep hearing that Chris Hinton is the guy that really, really needs to emerge. Give them 2 guys up front, and then that front 7 with some of those young linebackers. I think Josh Ross is going to have a good year. He's in great shape. Talking to his brother a couple of weeks ago, he said he's in outstanding shape, the best shape of his life. So maybe this team surprises, man. They're going to have a lot of guys step up and play their best football in order for this team to be an 8 or 9 win team, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And yeah, going back to Louis Hansen, I mean, we talk a lot about the early enrollees because they're on campus obviously for so much longer, but he seemed like a guy to me, and even his dad would shoot me a DM of some pictures of his workouts and giving the weight updates or whatever, and I had never talked to him, but this guy was serious about his training. Sometimes, like you said, Ben Herbert was almost a little surprised at just how ready this guy is coming in. So some of those guys are going to surprise. In that aspect. And then also, going back to the quarterbacks as well, I just got off the phone with Phil Steele, who puts out his tremendous, college football preview magazine. The guy knows everything basically, about every team. And he also projected Alan Bowman. And I asked him about that, I guess what went into that projection. And he said, he had watched a lot of Alan Bowman at Texas Tech. He liked what he brought to the table. And he said, but he also noted that it could be any one of those 3 guys between Cade McNamara, J.J. McCarthy, and Alan Bowman, and it's going to be one in camp. And I said, I agree with you. This is Cade McNamara's job coming out of the spring. J.J. McCarthy's a guy who's going to get better and better probably by the day here because he's so talented and he's got to pick some things up. Alan Bowman just got into town. This is a job that's going to be won in fall camp. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what we start hearing once the pads go on in August and see exactly where everybody is. But I guess anything else on the summer here? I mean, man, it's competitive too. You talk about those workouts. I remember the stories coming out about even Wilton Spate and John O'Korn, how some of them would be throwing with a certain guys. They'd have a text group, and then John O'Korn would hear about it, or Wilton Spate would hear about the other one and show up. So I mean, that's the type of stuff that I feel like is some of the stuff that really matters when it comes to who's actually going to see the field.
Yeah, and that's what builds. That was what makes it Tom Brady, and he has said as much. Man, he wasn't handed anything. He had to wait until the last 2 years to start, and then even then he was competing with Drew Henson, and he said that made him the player that he is today. And that's how you do it. You don't recruit one quarterback and promise that you're not going to recruit anybody else and say, okay, it's your job. Then you get complacent. I think Shea Patterson got a little complacent and could have been better than he was. We heard Josh Gaddis talk about him. He's on the golf course a little bit too much and called him out a little bit. I think Shea could have been better. But this is what brings the best out of these guys. And that's what excites me about it, is that, okay, these guys are going to improve because they're going to make each other improve. And I know that sounds cliche, but it hasn't always been the case here, where you've had, another guy pushing another guy. And some guys you didn't have to worry about it. Denard Robinson was going to put in the work anyway, for example. That guy was something else. But if you go back to Denard Robinson and Tate Forcier, guess who was putting in the work and guess who wasn't? Tate Forcier could have been a really good quarterback. And unfortunately, he had a little bit of that Shea Patterson tendency in him too during the summer. So, but that's what I love about this. I think you got 3 guys that are really ready to work. I know that McCarthy is, the stories that we've heard about him. We've seen him in Chicago. Our E.J. Holland has been down there watching him work. So this is a kid who gets it. Now, he's got the big arm, can make all the throws, great hair. So So,
Yes,
but
tremendous.
yeah. So, but it's I like this group. We'll see if the first Jim Harbaugh, Michigan great quarterback, is in this group. I think if it is, it's McCarthy. But I certainly wouldn't write off McNamara. We'll see what happens this fall.
Definitely. We'll be covering over at the Wolverine.com. Use the promo code BLUE60 to get 2 months of our premium content for free. Try us out with the free trial there. Everybody enjoy your 4th of July, and we'll see you next week. As we talked about with Hunter Dickinson, DeVante Jones, there'll be some news between now and probably when we do this again, and so follow that over at the Wolverine.com.